questions we wrestle with as Christians about who God is and how do we live out our faith. What is the Bible? What is the truth of the Bible? What are we supposed to believe? How are we supposed to live? There are really big, deep questions that we ask each other, that we ask God, that we wrestle with ourselves. And that's why the Cultivate podcast exists, to help us go deeper in our understanding of who God is, His Word, and the way that He's called us to live. Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor at the Grove Church, and we've got here with us expert podcast producer Abigail Boone.
Like that title.
And just general all-around best question asker that I know.
Thank you.
You just really do. You just ask great questions.
Thank you.
You can tell that you're thinking.
I'm always thinking of questions.
We're trying to make this a thinking person's podcast, which
like that.
Gives you a great role. You're mostly over there listening.
Right.
But then you're coming in with hot questions,
right,
for us to talk about.
Most of the time when you're talking in any scenario, I have to refrain from getting everybody off track because I'm like, well, what about? Well, what about?
Sometimes I'll preach on Sunday. I'll go back to my office and pull out my phone, and I've already got a question.
Sure, yeah.
It's nice.
I'm going to stab some holes.
All right, so this is your podcast. Then now
it's mine.
You're
Welcome
in charge.
To the Abigail Boone podcast. Ooh. All right, so I got a scenario for you.
Oh.
If you know Charlie, you know that he loves Chick-fil-A. If you know me, you know that I love Chick-fil-A. I got that outrageous question from my mom. She asked if I've already been for lunch. Surely I'm tired of it by dinner. And I was like, I don't understand your question.
That doesn't even make sense to me. That doesn't even make sense to me.
So let me give you a scenario, though. I want to know what you would do in this situation. You're super tired from a workout. Maybe you hit the elliptical, you went on a walk, something like that. So your appetite is up, right?
Right.
You've been daydreaming about the Chick-fil-A meal that you're about to get.
Okay.
You go through the drive-thru. This is assuming you're not one of those crazy people that eats on your way home. I wait until I get home. So let's just, if you're not, let's assume you're that person.
So I am waiting until I get home.
Correct.
Okay.
You don't open the sauces, no French fries, no nothing.
I'm not checking the bag.
No, you are practicing all self-control and not opening it. You're trusting the great workers that we all know.
It is Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
99.9% chance of 100% accuracy.
Yes.
Okay.
You get home. I order the 12-count nugget meal.
Okay.
I get home. You get home. You open it up. It's strips. Are you let down? Do you eat the meal? Do you go back to Chick-fil-A? Do you complain? What do you do in this situation?
As with most things like that, there is a set of factors.
Sure.
Right? How far away
is the drive back to
Chick-fil-A? To wherever it is I'm going. So
let's say you're going home.
The Chick-fil-A that is closest to my house, now we're talking it is approximately 5 minutes away.
Sure.
So I've got to drive 5 minutes, plus it's going to be another 5 minutes waiting to explain to them what happened, and then another 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes back. So let's say we're invested at about 20 minutes.
Sure.
Okay. So how hungry am I?
Uh-huh.
And how off was the order?
Okay.
I ordered nuggets. They gave me strips. That's fine.
Really?
I ordered nuggets. I got a salad.
Oh, that should be off the table for everyone. That's a big mess up.
Right? I mean, is it in the same genre?
Sure.
Okay, I ordered the number one, no pickles.
Uh-huh.
It has pickles.
Ew.
I can take the pickles off and just...
Even though it's marinated
and
in the
know
bun
that there are going to be a couple of less than enjoyable bites.
Sure.
And so I'm willing to, for a minor change, to just let
bygones be bygones.
Yeah. At a major change, I can't even eat this.
Yeah.
I'm going back
because we're both
somewhere in between minor inconvenience and I can't eat this. Probably exists a place where I'm going to eat it.
Right.
But I'm pocketing that receipt.
100%.
And I'm
getting it fixed next time.
I'm telling them.
Yeah.
So that I can get my next meal free.
Okay.
Because a place like Chick-fil-A would do that.
Absolutely.
A place like McDonald's is going to look at you and why are you even here?
So sorry.
Why are you even here?
Should have just eaten it or thrown it away.
Right.
So that happened to me last night, but I was in a predicament of the Mavs game had started. I'm not a Mavs fan, but I want to keep up. I'm a Celtics fan. Whoop, whoop.
No, you're not. Please.
I am. Longtime Celtics fan. But I wanted to watch my boy
Celtics
Kyrie.
fan, Yankees fan, Alabama football fan.
Sure. No, not
Tiger
Alabama.
Woods fan.
That's not a hot take. Everybody's a Tiger Woods fan.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying.
You think everybody's a Celtics
fan? It's a bandwagon deal.
Okay, it's not a band. I was a junior higher, and I was like, Rajon Rondo is who I want to be someday.
Yeah, I mean, say you're a Charlotte Bobcats fan, and I'm like, okay, no.
Sure.
Lakers, Celtics,
Okay,
Lakers, Celtics, Lakers,
Celtics. It would be
Celtics.
more so if I was a Lakers fan. All right, let's put that aside.
Please.
The game had started. I'm not going to take the trek back to Chick-fil-A. I don't have any other food in my house, but the strips are cooked in a different marinade than the nuggets.
It's a little more. It's a little more mustardy.
I hate it. I don't like the smell. I don't like anything. And so I just didn't eat it. I put it back in my bag, only had French fries and a Coke, and found out you can go on the app and you can tell them the order was messed up, and they just gave me a free meal.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
Pro tip for everyone, just always mark your meals as wrong.
Hey, no. That is not official Grove Church Cultivate policy. It's a lie to the good people at Chick-fil-A.
I would never.
I was night manager at Chick-fil-A for about 18 months when I was in seminary, and I knew that there were people that were taking advantage of our kindness. Because our policy, according to our operator, was if someone comes with a complaint, you fix it, no questions.
Yeah.
And so sometimes somebody's coming to you with a sandwich with only one bite left.
Sure.
Telling you that it is cold.
That's wrong.
I'm sure it is. There's only one bite left.
That's wrong.
And they said, replace it no matter what. And we know that there are people taking advantage of us, but that sort of attitude makes it gives it a great reputation. So you win in the end. That was the philosophy.
Yeah. And I agree with it. I've never actually done that. That was the only time I've done it on the app.
But it was honest.
It was honest, and I am a proud signature member, so I have a lot of rewards to give back.
It takes me like 2 weeks into the calendar year
to get your
to get the signature status.
Oh, 100%. I will be sad if I ever lose it. Yep. All right. Well, I knew you would relate to me on the seriousness of the situation.
That's a real question.
It is. It bothers your night, but the game had already started, so I was in a predicament.
That's right. That's part of the thing. It's like, do I have the 20 minutes to go back? I don't. I'm watching this game.
Right. Sure. All of the workers there know me, so they're just like, oh yeah, you're Abigail. They don't, they know. All right, well, let's hop in. We've been doing this series for a pretty good time now. Yep. We've already done one Q&A session, and we've done
a couple of Q&A sessions.
We did, yeah, that's right. We did 2, but that was kind of halfway through the series, and it's all referencing back to our Easter series that we did over some of the biggest questions that you could have in the Christian faith, I would say.
Yes.
So the last 3, let's give a rundown. What were the last 3 ones? It was, did Jesus rise from the dead? Mm-hmm. Do you say rise or raise?
Raise is what I would do to you.
Sure.
Rise is what he would just do.
He did. Sure.
He would rise from the dead. God raised Jesus from the dead. Jesus rise.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. All right. And then we got, is Jesus the only way? Right. That is a massively hot topic.
Right. And we actually did a couple episodes on that.
Yeah.
On that topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the next one kind of blended over, but then it filtered into the evil of the world and the need for Jesus.
Right.
So we've covered a lot of hot topics, and this is kind of rounding us out.
Okay.
So we're going to hit it hard.
All right, I'm ready.
It's good stuff.
And you didn't send me any of these questions.
Nothing. Yeah, I kind of like that now, so I can get more of the shock value and see what you really know. Okay. But shout out to my grandma, Janie Boone. She is a huge fan of you, and she loves that you're a studied pastor, but also you're willing to acknowledge when you haven't read as much on something. So you do it well.
Thanks.
You're not overconfident with your stuff. So my first off question, I'm going back to episode 4 of Is Jesus the Only Way? You talked a lot about how do you get to God? Do I get to God through this way, this path, whatever? What do you mean by get to God?
Okay. So let's just start with nothing, right? I'm sitting here. I live in this world. I begin to start to ask the question, where did this world come from?
Right.
And through some personal reflection, some looking out into the world, I realize there has to be some sort of creator. Mm-hmm. Right? So there is a creator of this universe. And so then I continue to walk, I continue to think, I continue to experience. Is this God knowable or is he distant?
Right. Is this creator?
Right. Maybe so because you could imagine that a creator would create something and then just walk away.
Right.
Or is this creator engaged with this world and wants to know me? Mm-hmm. Okay. So then the next question, okay, maybe now I answer that question. Yes, I do believe that there is a God that wants to know me. But then we all come to this, everybody comes to this point, Christian, atheist, agnostic, whatever. There is something wrong in the world.
Right.
But if I come at it through a theistic viewpoint, there is a God. He does want to know me, and there is something wrong. Something is broken in this world, either in me, in God, or between me and God, both. What is it?
Right.
The Christian understanding of that is that the brokenness that exists between us and God is because of our sin.
Right.
That there's a brokenness. I cannot have a full, intimate relationship with God because the relationship is broken.
And that's you recognizing that you're a part of the brokenness that you see in the world.
Like the brokenness is not, it's not just something out there. It is out there, and how this out there happened is a whole lot of all of us in there. Right. And
Yeah.
it's not just something we did. It is something we did. Like we did this,
Right.
which includes me.
Yeah.
And so not only is there a problem in the world, the reason there's a problem in the world is in part because of our sin. And that not only has broken the world, but it has damaged our relationship with God.
Right.
In the same way I could hurt you right now, it would damage our relationship.
Yeah.
And so we begin to understand and learn more and more about who God is. We begin to understand the dynamics of that. I mean, God is a Lord. He is a creator. He is a sovereign. And so we owe him something, and we did not give it. But not only that, we have offended him, offended a God that is good, that is holy. And so there's a brokenness there. And so it is very often illustrated with some people when they are talking about this idea like a gap in a mountain. Like I'm on one mountain and they're on the other, and there's this big cavern in between. How do I bridge that relationship?
Right.
It's not just, it was just made up. There was actually no problem all along. God was there right next to you the whole time. No, there really is a cavern. And so people will try to, how do I, again, to use the word, how do I bridge that? Can I build that bridge myself?
Right.
Can I do good things, believe right things, act a certain way, and slowly make up for the brokenness? Or is this something that God has to come and do for me?
Right.
And so a lot of different religions and a lot of different individual people will come up with a lot of different answers to how do we bridge the gap. Most people will acknowledge there is some sort of gap. There are very few people, even people who'd say, it was all imaginary. It was all in your mind. Even if it's all in my mind, it's real in my mind, and something has to be done or undone in my mind to get back right. So we all acknowledge the brokenness. So when I say, how do we get to God, it really is kind of shorthand for how do I bridge the gap? How do I restore a broken relationship with God?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of answers out there. The standard Christian answer is Jesus died on the cross to reconcile us back to God. So we have to understand, first and foremost, what does that mean? Christians say it all the time, Jesus died for sins.
Right.
What does that mean? We have to understand what it means. But then the question we're asking is, okay, is that a way to bridge that gap, or is it the way to bridge the gap?
Yeah. So it kind of gives me the mental image of, it's not just necessarily you're standing on the other side of the room and I'm over here, and how do I get to Charlie? It's more so like, I'm a kid at an amusement park. I feel lost and I don't know where to go. How do I get back to my dad?
Right.
There's a way to get back to him, a way to make things right again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can just imagine a disastrous scenario where you are swimming out in the ocean. You kind of get caught up in this tide, and now you're out clinging to this buoy in the middle of the ocean. Right. I'm here. Safety and life is on the shore.
Yeah.
How do I get back? Well, I know I'm not a strong enough swimmer to swim back. There don't seem to be, I don't see any boats.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fly. How do I get back? I'm going to need some sort of intervention.
Right. To get get back to the right standing.
Back
and
to
safe
where
standing.
I need to be.
Right. The intended standing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that kind of flows me into another thought, kind of put on your hat of sociologist or whatever it would be. You've had a lot of years of experience of interacting with humans.
Indeed.
And so
that's a really clever way of saying I'm old.
So you and Mark were talking a lot about the other religions, and even, I don't know what religion you would say America is. Let's just call it secular just for sake of ease. All these other ways are so complex. I'm probably naturally a lazy person. So if someone's like, you can make money by sitting on the couch, or you can make money by building a house, I'm going to sit on the couch. Right?
Yeah.
So I hear these different options, and it's like, why are people so incapable of accepting that something is free and done for you, as opposed to you have to do all of these things? It sounds so tiring you hear all these other paths, and it's like, you must do this, 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 and this. You hear Jesus, and he's saying, I've done this for you. Trust me. And you've been justified. Why won't people accept that?
I mean, obviously, if I'm putting on my sociology hat,
sure,
I don't really know other cultures as well as I know the culture in which I live. So I'll just stick with that then, right? The culture in which we live, the American culture, is what I have, I earned.
Right.
Yeah, I don't need a handout. I don't need the government. I don't need anyone. I'm an American. I can achieve. It is a high achiever, high doer, high earner, right? And so there's that where it's just like, I want something good.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get something good? I get something good by earning it.
Right. Work.
And I think as you think about if we've accurately described the problem as sin, I have done bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this sense of, well, I owe God something. It is in fact a very natural response to think, well, if I owe God something, I need to give him something. Right. And so what does God require of me? Okay, church attendance, financial giving, serving the needy. Those are the things that God seems to value. Abstaining from certain cultural vices,
right?
Gambling, sex, alcohol, drugs, those sorts of things. And so there's a natural thing. I've got red in my ledger. I owe a debt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obligated to pay it off. And so honestly, in some ways it's more difficult. I understand you're sitting on the couch metaphor and that it is easier to do nothing than something.
Right.
But I think the thing that makes the most sense to the way our brains work is I owe God something. I need to do something to pay for that.
Right.
I think the point in which we ultimately have to make the switch is when we realize that it starts to feel like the hamster on the wheel.
Absolutely, yeah. You're never going to reach it.
I'm doing it, but I don't seem to be making any progress. For every good thing I do, I still keep doing another bad thing.
Right.
I can't quite seem to get there. And even on my best day, I'm doing all the right things. Something still seems off. It doesn't seem to be working. And you hear the apostles all throughout the book of Acts describing it that way. You see Paul in his letters describing it that way. We were doing it, but we knew it wasn't working.
Right.
We didn't know any other way, so we kept at it, but we knew that it was not providing us with the big picture things that we wanted: peace, reconciliation, joy, life. It was what we had to do, but it wasn't getting the desired results.
Right.
And so I think it is pretty natural to want to pay God back. And I think there's a lot of pride. And I'll give you guys, and now I've got three answers to your question. I think there's a lot of pride in the fact that I don't want to be given something for free. So
because we think
we
can do it ourselves.
Me and you right now is like, hey, when we're done here, let's go down here and I'm going to buy you ice cream.
Right.
The natural response, you may be like, dope. Yeah. A typical response is, oh, no.
Right.
No.
Right.
We don't know how to
accept
free gifts.
Right.
Oh, it's too much. It's too much. You get a really nice Christmas present. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. You shouldn't do that. There is something I think inherently in us that rejects generosity.
Yeah. We're going to come back to this multiple times through the questions that I have today, but my gut reaction is it can feel kind of frustrating because you literally just go to Romans 6:23 and it says the free gift of God is eternal life, but the wages of sin, that's like you have to work for something and there's actually a free gift given. Right. So it's like people buck up against this, and I'm sure you've had so many conversations throughout all of the years of experience of interacting with humans, right, that you could show them that verse, but they just don't accept it to be true, I guess.
They can't. There's something in their heart they can't accept it. The number of times where you can share that idea with them and they'll be like, that sounds really great,
but surely not.
I need to get a few things right in my life, and then I'll be able to take the free gift.
Right.
Like that there's a sense in which like the free gift exists inside like a beautiful, pristine, fancy lounge of some sort. So I have to get from where I am to the beautiful, fancy lounge, fancy restaurant. Right. And if I get in there, I have to get in there to get this gift. But you can't just walk in there.
People think they can.
That's what people think. That's what people think. I can't just walk in there and pick up the gift. Right. I'm not dressed appropriately. I'm not clean enough. So I need to go take a shower. I need to buy some better clothes. And then once I'm clean and I have the better clothes, I can walk into this place and receive the free gift.
Right.
When in fact, the free gift includes the bath and the clothes.
Sure. Yeah.
But there is definitely something in us that strongly prevents us from believing something can be free, which is
and truly that gracious.
Yeah, and if you've ever interacted with Mormons will use that against you. They understand that. It's like, does it really make sense that God, you don't have to do anything?
Right.
He just gives it to you no matter what?
Yeah.
Like you don't have any role to play?
Right.
Like they use that kind of American pride
mentality of
yeah, which has always made me wonder. I mean, I know that they have successful missions in other countries. It seems like just like the perfect American religion, and I don't mean that as a compliment to anybody.
Don't go pursue it.
Right? It is capital A American. I wonder how it works in other cultures sometimes, but it's like it really does. It feeds into that. Jesus has this really cool thing, like, and you're kind of going in 80-20.
Right.
They'll actually describe it that way. And it does, that connects more with the American mindset.
Right.
It is way more humbling to admit I need this and there isn't anything that I can do about it. When the Bible says things like, even the best that we have to offer are like dirty garments to God.
Right. Can't even live a good tip.
Right? It's like I really don't have anything to bring to this situation.
Right.
I think that undoes a lot. I don't have anything to give.
Yeah. Which to me, I went through these same questions for sure. I didn't want to. I don't know if I felt obligated that I needed to do stuff. I wasn't thinking necessarily in the mindset that I am now. But on this side of it, it really is just even more evidence of how unbelievably great our God is if they would accept that there is nothing. He really just wants to know us and he wants a relationship with us. There's no strings attached.
Yeah, I think the Bible is full of descriptors of what God is like. God is like a king. He is like a Lord. He is like a father. And I think we don't spend enough time thinking about that God is like a father.
Right.
And we think, well, God is like a father in the same way a father is like a king. And we don't think about the ways in which God is like a father that are different than a king.
Right.
It is actually really simple to think about, hey, my dad genuinely loves me. And if our relationship was broken, he would do anything to restore that relationship.
Right.
And loves to give me free things and has an unconditional love for me. I mean, we don't spend enough time there. We just think of it in terms of achievement boss, Lord, King, those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of a pivot, but still on the same topic. You referenced a lot of the verse, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. This may be a short answer, but are those way, truth, and life different things that you'd say people are pursuing, or is he just being redundant of all these things you're pursuing? That's me.
I think I really like the phrasing of that verse because there are things, those are three different things that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to know how to find God.
Right.
I want to know true things about God. I want to have real, meaningful life.
Yeah.
And so in that, we're looking towards a wise teacher, a guru, a shaman, a priest, or whatever can you tell me the way to God? Can you tell me the truth? Can you help teach me how to have life? So these are tangible things that I'm looking for that usually would be transmitted from information. You have information on those topics? Yeah, I do. And so you're going to give me your information on those topics, which makes you then the teacher, the pastor, the priest, the rabbi, the guru. You have information on it.
Right.
And so they're coming to Jesus saying, give us these things. Show us how to find God. Tell us what is true about God. Tell us the 10 keys to having great life. And rather than giving them answers to those questions in a traditional way, he says, I actually am those things.
Right.
I'm not the keeper of truth. I'm not the shower of the way. I'm not the one that explains life. I am those things.
Yeah. So would you say in another way that's saying have a relationship with me? Or is that saying consume me? Or, what do you mean whenever you're saying I am those things, not just here's the guidebook to those things?
I think if you continue on in John chapter 14 and you see the way that they responded to it, I think it's not supposed to be immediately intuitive what he's talking about.
Okay.
Upon 2,000 years of reflection, we have our own theological constructs about what that means.
Mm-hmm.
But for them, it was like,
what?
Did he answer the question? I don't think he did.
Right.
Ask him again. Ask him again. And so then Thomas is like, if you would maybe just show us God.
Yeah.
Just show us the Father, that will be enough.
And that's when he gets
And then he goes, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Right. And you're like, I don't think
I would.
Is he not listening? Is he dumb? Is he being why is he being so obtuse?
Right.
Right. I mean, you can just tell. And then when Jesus dies, the way that he predicted he was, it devastated them. You could tell that their brains and their hearts were playing catch up with everything that Jesus was saying.
Right.
And it really wasn't until probably some of the post-resurrection teaching, having experienced it, had been like, you're not just a rabbi.
Right. You're something more than that.
You're not just the greatest of the prophets. You're the son of, when you said son of God, you
meant.
What?
Right.
What?
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
And so 2,000 years later, having, standing on their shoulders and 2,000 years worth of theological reflection, we're like, of course, what he means is...
In retrospect, you can see all this stuff.
Yeah, but for them at the time, it was completely worldview shifting.
Right.
This was not about information and action. This was about an experiential relationship with God who became a person.
Right.
And I think that we still, to go back to even some of the question you were asking earlier, I mean, I still think when we talk about how do I get right with God, there's certain things I need to know and there's certain things I need to do. Know and do. What do I need to know? What do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is like, it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. It's about who I am.
Mm-hmm. Because he does everything.
He did all the things.
Right.
And knowing becomes less about information and more about intimate relational knowledge. Right. The way that I know the way I know my friends, the way that I know my family. Like I don't, of course, facts about them are true.
Right.
But that's not what it means. Knowing a lot of facts about my kids is not me knowing my kids.
Right.
It is just a very small subsection of it. And so I don't need to know things about God. I get the opportunity to know God.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the work part, Jesus did the work.
Right. Man, my mind is reeling. You just led me in so many different directions of questions. But one, I always, whenever I'm reading the Gospels, I have this little mental image of if I were in the back of the group, I don't know who I would want with me there, but I'd be like, yo, what did he mean whenever he said that thing?
I can only imagine. I try to think about this a lot. I think about what it would have been like to have been one of the disciples, like for real. Like imagine that they're not Bible characters, but they're actual humans that lived on the earth.
Right.
And they were just 12 random dudes from incredibly diverse backgrounds.
And not crazy intellectual backgrounds.
Right. I mean, a couple of them were. So you got all sorts of different sorts of guys.
But it's not like he had the Pharisees walking around with him that knew the Bible deeply.
He just says something.
But it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And you're like, yes, thank you, Jesus. And then Jesus walks away and you're like,
yo, what did he mean?
Did you catch that? And then be like,
Yeah.
Because you gotta play at the time, which to me, like when you have the question interactions with Jesus where they finally do push back,
right?
Like you kind of get a picture, and like their questions are like, they didn't understand it at what we would call even at the simplest of levels.
Right.
But then upon reflection, if you think about what it would have been like to have been the first person to hear Jesus say that. I mean, they were like, it's somewhat totally normal reaction, guys.
Oh, totally. Well, which leads me into my next question. I didn't realize that was from the same passage, but him saying, I don't know the exact reference, you could clear it up, but him saying, if you know the Father, you know me, or whatever that is, you recap it whenever you answer. Mm-hmm. Kind of lay out how like that would have not been just like cool. That would have been like, what?
Yeah, I mean, he says something like that a handful of different times.
Yeah.
This is just him and his closest disciples.
Right.
And so they don't react to it too strongly, but you can tell it still hasn't completely sunk in yet.
Right.
When he said it publicly, the Pharisees picked up rocks.
Yeah. Because it's, like that, I guess, borderline offensive almost?
No, not borderline. Okay. It is absolutely offensive.
I don't know what our modern day
well, I mean, it would be the very same. It's like, Charlie, tell me what you know about God. Well, I don't have to just tell you because I am God. Right. I would love to see God someday. Hey, if you've seen me, Abigail,
right,
you've seen God.
Yeah. That's just like, world rattling.
Like whatever it is you think about me, right? Charlie is smart. He's a good friend. He seems to know things. And then all of a sudden, at some random interval, I say the equivalent of, Abigail, if you've seen me, you've seen God. Right. There are only a few limited number of reactions to that make sense. I either misunderstood him.
I think I would think that.
I misunderstood him. I need to run.
Uh-huh.
I mean, those are probably your top two. Like this. Yeah. Okay. We got to do. I can't be associated with that anymore.
Right.
That's crazy or insanely egotistical.
Right.
Or I misunderstood him.
Right.
And again,
you've misunderstood everything else around you.
And C.S. Lewis was the first one that I'm aware of that kind of put this together in kind of a coherent argument that is referred to as Lord, Liar, Lunatic.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Which Mark referenced in a sermon sometime in early May, late April. It was in April. He referenced this. And so if Jesus says, if you've seen me, you've seen God, there are really only three, and recently people have added a fourth. There are really only 3 or 4 ways that you can respond to that. It's either not true and he knows it's not true.
Right.
So he's a deceiver and a liar. Well, there's plenty of people out there claiming to be all sorts of things that know that they're lying and are just trying to achieve wealth and power and develop following.
Right.
It's not true. He doesn't know that it's not true. So he's insane.
Right.
Or it is true and he knows it's true and he's God and you need to worship him.
Right.
Really, those are kind of your only 3 choices. The fourth one that people say is we have misunderstood Jesus. Jesus never really said those things.
Right.
Most people that you can add that to it. But if he did in fact say it, Jesus being a good teacher is not one of our choices. He's either insane, he's evil, or he's the Lord of the universe. He is not one of the good teachers,
Right.
one of the gurus.
He is the.
He's either the or he's something you want to run away from.
Yeah. That's just one of my first thoughts when I was listening to this, and obviously I've heard it probably about 4 times now the episode, just from being the producer and sitting in here and everything.
Most of our views come from
me,
Abigail.
I'm right in there,
our best listener,
right? But it's not a small thing what he's saying, and the idea that you and Mark were discussing that he is the only way. All of the verses that prove that are really huge, history-changing verses. They're not just small things that you breeze over when you're reading them or contemplating them. They mean a great deal.
Yeah, and when they were said at the time, were so highly offensive,
right,
that the people who opposed Jesus wanted to kill him.
Right.
It wasn't just simply that they wanted, I don't want anything to do with that. Well, I reject his teaching. I choose somebody else's teaching. This is so highly offensive and so very different than what everyone else is saying and doing, that he's a threat. Right. By saying this, he is a threat.
Yeah.
And so we have to be done with this. It is very different than what the other teachers were saying. And again, what other founding people who have founded religions like Muhammad or Joseph Smith or the Buddha or people like that, very different than what they're saying. It's very different to say, I have a unique insight that God gave me that no one else has, and to say, if you have seen me, you have seen God.
Yeah. Is the Buddha's name Buddha? That's the most striking thing you just said to me.
It's just his title.
Okay.
I think I said the Buddha. It's his title.
Buddha.
The Buddha. It's his title.
All right. Well, one last question. I don't know what we're doing on time right now, but if he is the way, the truth, and the life, he's the first person that said it in the Bible, to my knowledge. Maybe I'm not an Old Testament expert, but why did he come as late as he came? I know in the grand scheme of history, there's been... I love history, but I don't know the timeline of how many years has been post-Christ than before Christ.
Right.
But is there a significance as to why? Like, what about all those people in the Old Testament? Did they just not know the way? Was there a different way?
Again, there are 17 different ways to answer your question.
Okay.
It may be plus or minus, but there's a lot of different ways to respond to that. But even in your asking of the question, even in your framing of the question, there is a path. They did not know the path. Yeah. We now know the path. And Jesus is like, there's not a path.
It is.
I am the path.
Right.
It is Jesus. And it is what Jesus did. And so in a real sense, what Jesus did, he did at a particular time that we're aware of. It happened at around, 30 to 33 AD outside of Jerusalem, right? That is when he died. And then on the third day, he came back to life, right? That is a time. So there's before that and after that. God, who exists outside of the timeline, does not think of things of being before or after.
Right.
In God's reckoning of people, Jesus died. Jesus died to reconcile the world back to himself.
Yeah.
So the people in the Old Testament clearly didn't know Jesus by name.
But
they were not aware of maybe even that the Son of God was fully understood that there was going to be the Son of God who was going to die for them. Their understanding of the way that God worked, you see it progressing and developing over time.
Right.
And so what Adam knew is different than what Noah knew, is different than what Abraham knew, it's different than what David knew. You can see just even a developing and a deepening of their general understanding of who God is, what is the purpose of the law, what is the purpose of obedience, what does God really want from me? So you see David saying I would offer you a sacrifice if I thought that would help.
Right.
The sacrifice that you want is my broken heart.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that developing over time. And so God responds. You read Hebrews 11, 12, 13 in there. You see that God responds to people who take acts of faith towards him.
Right.
And so how God is reckoning whether or not an Old Testament person has responded to him in faith in the way that we respond to God in faith. Jesus died for everybody.
Right.
And people are responding to that. And again, what he wants from us, the level of our understanding, is based on the fact that we do now know by name who Jesus is.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
He wasn't asking that of Abraham.
Okay.
You need to know Jesus' name.
Right.
But, the way Galatians references, James references, I mean, there were acts that Abraham did, leaving his family, the story with Isaac. These are acts of faith where he put his faith and trust in God. And it says that God responded to that and credited it to him as righteousness.
Right.
But Jesus had also died.
Right.
And so it's complicated.
But
I think the shortest answer to your question is, you can't just go to someone who doesn't know anything and explain everything that there is to understand about God and expect them to get it within their own lifetime.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's the theological phrase called the progressiveness of revelation. God is revealing, we can learn this much about God in Genesis.
Okay.
And then they're coming out of the Exodus, and they're learning more and more and more and more. And so there really had to be almost like a cultivating of their own understanding of who God is and the way that the law works and the way that sacrifices work. We need to let all of these things kind of sink in so that and this is a phrase that gets used in the New Testament a lot, so at the right time,
right,
God sends his son, where it's early enough, but it's also late enough that at least the foundation has been laid that people really can't. I get it now.
Right.
I get it now. I get what we've been after for the last 1,000 years, and all of our theological reflections of all of these stories and all these things that have happened and all the journeys that we've been on, all the things that the prophet says, they culminated in here, and I get it. And so too early, maybe we wouldn't have gotten it. Too late, and would have been too late. I mean, it's just like, and so again, at just the right time, when there was a fullness of understanding and enough of a foundation had been laid to where
this will make sense.
This has the potential to make sense.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fair argument. Part of me is like, it would have been really cool if Jesus showed up in America. But that'd be like so many years to happen.
You know what you just did, right?
I just did Mormonism.
You just did Mormonism.
Hello, my name is Joseph Smith.
No, we need to edit that. Just kidding.
No, well,
no, that really is that is one of their appeals. That's one of their open lines. Don't you think Jesus would have wanted to come to America?
Right, but not just because we have like really awesome views, but because we feel extremely broken and divided and lost. Yeah,
and Bible tells us it's all going to get worse.
Right.
And at just the right time, Jesus is going to come back. You think, how do we know when the right time is? I think, again, there's a progressiveness of understanding. I think God is patiently and graciously waiting for more and more people to be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then the Bible makes it very clear that when he comes back, these things that he does are going to be seen by everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology for that doesn't exist yet.
Right.
But I think it will exist when Jesus comes back.
Yeah.
So I think there are some things that are fully developing morally, spiritually, and are deepening our understanding, the way that our world works, that again, at just the right time in history.
Yeah.
Jesus is going to come and make things right.
Okay. I'll trust it.
All right, let's do it. My guess is we did not even begin to scratch the surface of your questions. And so we will come back next episode. Thanks so much for joining us in this one, Abigail. Again, expert questioner.
Love being here.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Cultivate podcast. Our hope is that you are taking steps to go deeper in your faith, that you are asking big questions and you're looking for answers.
We hope that we can be a resource for you through our podcast and any other way that we can help you. You can find all our episodes anywhere that you can find podcasts, including YouTube. If you are local, we would love to help you get connected at our church. You can find us at thegrovechurch.org. If you go to the Connect link, you can find all the information you need about our services in person or online. There's a form that you can fill out. Any way that we can help you, pray for you, please let us know. And again, thank you so much for joining us.